I've noted a couple of questions that I think will be of general interest. So first of all, Josie had asked, they have a review with hundreds of analyses. Are there any plans for a global setup so you don't have to click around defining each one individually?
So maybe I can respond to that. So it's very interesting to hear that you're requesting this. It's one of the things that we are looking into, whether we want to prioritize. So the fact that you're asking for it gives us a bit more information, and we're continuously prioritizing work to improve study-centric data workflow. So this will definitely be considered, and we'll be sharing news about it on the RevMan Web roadmap, which I will share a link to.
Okay, I will move on to the next question. So there was a question about moderator analysis, which I think we don't have a specific answer to that, but maybe we can. It's worth talking about implementation of new and different methods in RevMan in general.
Sure. So in general, moving to RevMan Web means that we are now able to introduce new methods more easily. So we have a process for prioritizing developments, and basically when you send in requests to either support@cochrane.org via webinars like this, or via the suggestion form in RevMan Web, these will be considered in that prioritization process.
Great. Okay. And there were a couple of clarification questions about like when study-centric data will be enabled and for which reviews, as well as the focused article format and kind of when that will be enabled, when it will become mandatory, and so on. So maybe we can just run through that again.
Sure. So maybe we could, first of all, Ella, go to the slide where we're showing what happens on April 25th, just so we have that up. Yes, this one, perfect. So basically, if you're starting a new protocol, and since April 25th for Cochrane reviews, study-centric data will be enabled by default, so you'll be able to use that feature. If you already had a protocol or a review in development, you will be able to enable the feature yourself. And it is a good time to consider switching if you haven't yet started data extraction. If you've started data extraction, or if you're, for example, working on an update, we probably advise you that it's not the perfect timing to switch to study-centric data. At this point, we're going to make some guidance available on if you want to do that. But it is a more complex process.
Yeah, and I think one of the other clarifications is that this study-centric data is available for intervention reviews and rapid reviews as default at the moment. We are engaging with the different Cochrane review groups who so for example, the DTA, the Cochrane methods group, sorry. So for example, the DTA methods group, the prognosis methods group, to understand what developments would be needed for their different review types. Because obviously what we've shown is a PICO, which is very much for an intervention review, and then they have different review criteria for those other review types.
I want to latch on here to Nikki's question here, because I think it relates to what we're talking about here. So what happens to updates going forward? Will any new updates need to be completely reworked as if it's a new review? Ella, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, so we have so I think there's a few things here. We have for an update, we wouldn't mandate a change to study-centric data because of the work it involves. I think it would be for authors to assess on a case-by-case basis. They may have, the first version of the review might have only had a few included studies, and then the update actually has lots more included studies. So authors want to make the most of the import function, for example. But we're also working on like step-by-step guidance for authors so that they can understand what it would entail to make that change if they did want to do it for an update. So they can really have an informed idea of what it's going to take, and the clear guidance once they make that decision if it's a change to use it.
Yeah, and there's another follow-up question at the bottom of the chat right now about how you can, if you do want to convert a review that already has data and non-study centric data, how you would go about that.
So we're working on that guide. We have a review that we are changing to study centric data. So we're just trying to find out what would be the most efficient way for an author to do that. So we're testing that process as we're developing the guide to try and really identify that, the most efficient way for an author to do it, so they don't have to work those aspects out. But as soon as it's available, we will be sharing that through the news items, through social media, and on the RevMan knowledge base and the study centric data training portal.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, okay, so there was another question about potentially reusing data between different Cochrane reviews. Can you comment on that as well?
Yeah. Oh, Rebecca, do you want to?
Sure. So basically, if you use study-centric data, you can export that data, and then it could be reworked to be able to import it into RevMan to a different review. So it's a matter of making sure that the data that you import is in the same format, is in the format that RevMan supports.
It was one of the benefits that we were trying to address with this process, that it is possible to do that.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so there was also a point of clarification about the creation of, or whether with study-centric data extraction forms will be created if you use it at the protocol stage?
I can respond to that. So the data extraction forms won't be created, but the process of sort of defining your review criteria will really support you in defining your templates, and will help you plan for the data extraction sheet. What you can do is, if you set up your review criteria and also set up your synthesis PICOs in the analysis, you could then export that without actually having entered any data. And then you'd have something that could be similar to a data extraction template, but you'd probably still need to do some work on it. And of course, that's only if you want to use Excel.
Yeah, because we do have, so as part of this, we do have templates that an author would need to use to be able to complete the import. So if you design your data extraction forms based on that import template, then you're going to be able to streamline that process for importing the data into RevMan, because it obviously needs it in a certain way so it understands where it needs to go. But looking at data extraction and looking at the templates is something that we I think will be moving into the sort of 2024 plan. So do watch this space for future developments.
Great. Okay. And I think Mukesh raised two issues that they've had with RevMan, and we'll certainly be taking a note of those. But one in particular is about importing RIS files. and getting particularly ID fields to import correctly. First of all, RIS is not as standardized as as we would like it to be, but I believe we have some new guidance either out or coming up to make this easier.
Yes, so it's not only guidance, we're also adding the import of study references and other references in the study data import. So, and also enabling more tags. So basically this process of importing references will be much easier. And that's coming fairly soon, in a few weeks. So we'll definitely be sharing that in comms.
Great. And there's another question about exporting references.
You are able to export references in RIS format at the moment from RevMan. So that feature does exist.
Yeah, so authors can export the references, but also the references for the review are part of the downloadable data package on published reviews. So you can also download the references from other reviews as part of that change too.
Yeah, and there, I believe that's through the export feature on the versions panel on the dashboard.